I've also seen Kate call her a few times, but she mostly does it in secret while she's training, probably because she's too embarrassed to let us know that she misses her. One more unusual conversation partner that we have been talking to on a semi-regular basis since we left the Laseti base is Jiren, the spirit in the magical plane that Darren is linked with. Well, actually, he mostly only talks with Araka and barely acknowledges our presence, but even so, he has been giving us some very interesting information about the latest developments on the magical plane. Apparently, Araka's plan worked far better than we could have hoped, and now most of the gods have turned against the god of time, the god of death, and god of fate. Also, now that the other denizens of the magical plane find out that some of the gods have been absorbing spirits to increase their power in secret, many of them have started volunteering to join Jiren's Enlightened Warriors group, and according to him, they should soon have enough members to pose an actual threat to divided and weakened gods. However, Araka predicted that 3 rogue gods have been holding out quite well against the other gods, and they are giving no sign of losing this battle anytime soon. In fact, from what I understood, nobody has managed to even find the 3 gods for the past 3 days, probably because the god of fate's illusions are doing a very good job at keeping them hidden, disorienting their foes. Still, this is good news for us because we want the god of time to be distracted and weakened as much as possible when we fight him, if we want to have any realistic chance of success. I still have no idea how they plan to fight him exactly, but we'll see. When I almost forgot about Rose. We've been having pretty much daily discussions with her too, especially during our briefings with Araka, who is very interested to know about every little advancement concerning Rose's control over her time powers. At the moment, she is capable of stopping time for at most 15 seconds. It tires her out rather quickly, but she has mastered the ability to keep time unfrozen for us even when we are so far away from her. As long as she can focus on the sound of our voices coming from the transceiver, she told us that she also managed to slow down time, but this is an effect that, unlike her time-stopping power, seems to affect only a certain area rather than the whole world, so she can't do it for us from a distance. Hey Luna, would you mind if I asked you a question, I say, once we've all gathered together and began eating. If it's about the slightly burnt taste of the variant meat, you should know that I had nothing to do with it, Luna tells me. No, actually it's about the Magium nodes, I say. From what I've gathered so far, it seems like you and Araka have interacted with one of the nodes in the past, but I was under the impression that each of these nodes is being closely guarded by the major factions from Varathia that owns it. Now, can you tell us which was the node you used, or is it also a secret they're not allowed to tell us? It was Phyron's node, Eluna says. This is also the one that Araka has been using even before Phyron. If she is to be believed, I personally have not seen her use it even once during the time she was mentoring me. She never even bothered to mention its existence to me at that time. Of course, I wasn't using it at the time, Araka says. I had already gotten most of the information needed from the Magium when I was still on the magical plane. The only thing that interested me from the nodes on the earthen plane was find a way back to my own plane of existence, but I couldn't find anything useful. So if the Magium is source of everything, now wouldn't it be possible to also boost your physical capabilities rather than just magical? And most people use it for that, but you could also strengthen your soul or something like that. Things might have gone better if I hadn't been stuck in a mountain or forced to inhabit animal bodies during the majority of my time here, but I never exactly had the opportunity to test that hypothesis. But you've both been to this node since Phyron took control of it, right? Darren asked, how did you convince him to share it with you? I haven't really used it that many times in the past 20 years since I first came across it with Flower, Iluna says, but usually Phyron would ask for a minor favor from us in exchange for a few visits to the node. This is how things usually work with him. As I'm sure Barry has already told you by now, if you want to visit his node while you are here, I'm certain that you can work something out with him when we'll meet him again in Galamir. Alright, Darren says, because he'll be there for the diplomatic discussions before the beginning of the war with Tyrath. Hopefully we'll catch him before he leaves. Oh, you don't need to worry about that, Diane says. Those discussions will absolutely not start before everyone gets there, according to Meredith. I won't be the only one who's late. You will get your chance to talk to him, I'm sure. Shouldn't you be the one who is worried? Iluna says, Diane. Iluna asked Diane, while raising an eyebrow. If they make the deal with Phyron about his node, they will have one less reason to take Meredith's deal about killing Aiden. To be perfectly honest, I don't have any strong feelings about this deal either way, Diane says while shrugging. Actually, if I were to lean towards one option, I'd probably prefer if you guys didn't accept her offers, because I'd rather not see Kate risking her life fighting against Aiden. But don't tell Meredith I said that. You know, Iluna says, it would be much easier to believe you when you say things like this if you didn't obscure your aura all the time to prevent anyone from knowing if you're lying or not. I'm not doing it on purpose, Diane says. You can't reliably use this technique unless it becomes second nature to you. If I stop doing it at any time, it will be extremely difficult to turn it back on, and with the way Aiden likes to pop up unannounced with his continent-wide teleportation, that is a risk I cannot afford to take. Well, it's not like anyone else here knows how to use this aura disclosing technique, Iluna says. So suppose that we'll have to take your word on that, won't we? Listen, I realize that we've only known me for a short while, Diane says. You have no real reason to trust me aside from the fact that I am a childhood friend of Kate, but that there really is nothing I can do about this. I'm sorry if it's making you uncomfortable. I will admit that I did think something was different about you ever since we first got united, Kate says. But now I realize that this must have been what was bothering me. While it does feel a bit awkward having conversation with you because of it, I don't think anyone would mind it even if it wasn't something beyond your control. I'm sure that everyone would choose to consequently use a technique that makes them immune to lie detection if they had the means to do so. Isn't that right, guys? Oh yeah, totally, Hadrick says as he takes on a bite of the roasted baron. I suppose, Darren says. Thank you for saying this, Kate. Diane says, I really appreciate it. Actually, I would never use such a technique if I had it. Agree with Kate, there would be nothing wrong with you wanting some privacy. That is true. I'm glad to see that you're all taking this a lot better than I was expecting, Diane says. For what it's worth, I was aware that this technique of mine could cause some of you to become suspicious, so I've been trying my best to be as open with you as I can to not hide anything from you. I hope that my efforts have not been in vain. So, is it okay if I go wash the plates? Flower asks her suddenly. I see that you're all done eating. Can't you just also conjure plates? I guess not. Actually, I think I'll be washing the plates today, Luna says. I've been using the knowledge that I retrieved from Meredith's Magium node to improve a spell of mine, and this would be a good way to practice it. You used knowledge from the Magium to work on a dishwashing spell? Hardrick asks, confused. This is hardly the intended purpose of the spell, but sure, you can call it that if you want, Luna says as she makes one of the plates float in the air inside a sphere of water. Hey, wait a minute, Arka says. That's the spell I taught you, isn't it? The one that you used against Hyra to down him in Thelius. It's an improvised version of your spell, Iluna says. At this point, it's different enough for me to call it my spell instead. Araka says. Sure it is. Still, it warms my heart that you finally decide to get over your hatred of me just enough to at least make use of the spells I taught you. It would have been such a waste if you just continued to ignore all my teachings. If you're feeling so talkative, how about actually being useful and giving your input on the modification I made to your spells, Iluna says. I've been focusing especially on improving its stability and on making the water regenerate quickly enough to withstand most of the stronger fire attacks. Naraka says, not bad. There are a few tiny adjustments that I'd like to make, but other than that, it doesn't look bad at all. Here, let me mark some of the inadequacies I've noticed so you can work on them. You're not drinking any ale today? Hardrick, Darren says as Luna is busy following Araka's instruction while washing the dishes. That's certainly unusual. Hardrick says, don't remind me. I've been having a headache all morning because of the hangover. Why today of all days, Darren asks. Is there some special occasion? Yeah, Hardrick says. The special occasion of Barry having tested a dizziness spell on me yesterday. I don't know if it's an allergic reaction or something, but there are certain dizziness spells that can cause me to become nauseous at the mere smell of any type of alcohol. The effects usually tend to truly set in the next day after the spell has been cast on me, and they normally last until late in the evening. Oh damn, I say, sorry about that. I would have chosen a different type of spell if I'd known that this was such a problem for you. It's fine. Hardrick says, I never really bothered telling anyone about this, so there wouldn't have been any way for you to know anyway. Anyway, Darren, since I can't drink today, would you mind having a short sparring with me so that I can at least unload some of my frustration? We'll try to end it when Iluna is done practicing her spells with Araka. Sure thing, Darren says. Let's go over there and we can start right away. As soon as Darren and Hardrick move away from the rest of us, get into their position, they both count to 3 at the same time. Then they dash at each other almost immediately. However, not even 30 seconds after the start of the battle, Darren calls for an unexpected time stop. Stop, Darren shouts all of a sudden. Hardrick, what in the God's name are you doing? What do you mean, what am I doing? Hardrick says, I'm fighting. You've seen me fight dozens of times before. Not like this, Darren says. Your moves are not the same at all. It's like you've become a completely different person overnight. How in the world could you have changed your fighting style so much over the course of one day? I couldn't even predict half of those moves, and I was reading your aura every step of the way.